Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back after a little bit of a hiatus, too.
Understandable. It's just, it was such a sigh of relief. It was like felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders when the season ended. Like, God, talk about a brutal season.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this before, right? It's hard to cover a team when they play like they have this season. It's like you can only say that they suck so many ways. Um, but with that being said, I'm gonna jump on my soapbox here real quick. Comcast are a bunch of soulless, heartless, passionless owners. They have done nothing for this franchise since we lost our beloved Ed Snyder, who also had his faults. Flyers
Of
probably would
course.
have won a few more Stanley Cups had he not had
Well, listen,
his
he
little policy about drafting and signing Russian players. But what Comcast has done to this once proud organization by forcing out alumni in positions of power that have been there for a long time, and we're not talking like hockey ops guys. We're not talking about forcing out like Paul Holmgren or anything like that. Like these are people that are just ambassadors for the team ambassadors. And you force out a guy like Joe Watson, who I know they made it seem like it was a mutual parting in the ways and he wanted to retire and blah blah blah. No, no. Joe Watson lived and breathed the Philadelphia Flyers, and they forced him out. Again, this is a once proud franchise, and they've done nothing but disappoint me since Comcast took over full control of the franchise. And it's from the top down. It's
well,
just bad decision after bad decision. Um, we have so much dead money just in coaches that we're no longer paying anymore. They just consistently make the wrong decisions and the wrong hires, and I quite frankly have had about enough of it.
well, it's everything, right? It's a mixture of everything going wrong, making some bad decisions. Players getting hurt, other players not playing to the level that we as fans demand, especially for some of the money that some of them are getting paid. So it's everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And speaking of, people that were kind of forced out, I remember when, the story of Bill Clement not being brought back to the broadcast, they just kind of like didn't even really ask him to come back. They didn't reach out to him. They didn't say anything. He just never heard from them again. And things like that rub the fans the wrong way. Now, I do think that, especially with how bad the attendance really got there in the end, uh, you notice that Gritty wasn't coming out as often because Gritty was just getting absolutely ripped on Twitter about how your team's terrible and you're just throwing Gritty in our face like it's supposed to make it better, which it didn't. Obviously they hired Briere, who is a former player who was loved, who was alumni. They hired him to the assistant GM. I believe he'll at one point be the GM. We
I've
can
laid
get in.
out for you the succession plan, what I
Yeah,
believe to be correct.
yeah, and
Yeah, Holmgren retires. Chuck Fletcher becomes president of the organization, and then Danny Briere takes over his general manager role.
yeah, and I guess we'll kind of let that segue us into one of our first topics. Is the Flyers hired Sammy Kapanen and Kyle Shiro, Fred Shiro's grandson, actually, um, to be. Well, they hired Sammy Kapanen specifically to be there to serve as their European player development and serve as a pro scout. He's obviously from Finland. He played 5 seasons for the team from 2003 to 2007. 311 career games, 44 goals, 66 assists, and 110 points. And personally, was one of my favorite players growing up in the early 2000s. Was a huge Sammy Kapanen guy. Um, Now, hiring a Finnish scout, someone who played with the team, could that affect who they might draft? Maybe there is a couple Finnish players who could go in the top five. And then Kyle Shiro, Fred Shiro's grandson, he's 23 years old. He's going to be scouting players out of New England, mostly for college and high school as a amateur scout. Um, so it showed that they're trying to make change. They're trying to get better in, the non-sexy areas of the game, like player development and scouting and stuff like that. Things that really go on a lot behind the scenes. So it could be a step in the right direction, but a lot of it would be speculation starting too early on how we think these might go.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm all for hiring scouts, and I think, it's a capped league, right? And so when you hear them come out and say that there's a blank check, well, you have to put the resources somewhere from the blank check, and there's no salary cap on scouts. To my knowledge, I don't think there's a limit to the number of scouts that you can have on the books. So to me, these are two guys that know hockey, and if they can spot a handful of decent players in their respective areas and find the next diamond in the rough, or even just provide some valuable insight from different areas of the country, then I don't see where it could go wrong, unless I'm wrong and they don't know hockey at all, which I have a hard time believing that.
Well, it's also not even just the scouting; it's also helping develop players, right? Like it's been reported that Sammy Kapanen has already been, working out and working with our second round pick from last year, Tuulamalo, who was from Finland. So you know, you hope that these moves and these hirings can work out because what's been going on recently has just not been working. So change was needed. I know the fan base can be split on whether they like hiring former players for jobs within the organization. Um, I'm not someone who hates it or loves it. I think if the person is good at their job, whether they played for us or not, they should get the job. So that's how I feel, and we'll see
Right,
how it plays
and I'll
out.
be honest with you, I think it does help having a number of guys that have played for your organization in the front office, because they know what this town expects. They know the brand of hockey that Flyers fans have come to love and expect. And, we continually see them go almost the opposite way in recent years. Um, gotten much smaller, much less physical, obviously, until you bring in guys like Zach McEwen, who are, he's just a fucking spark plug. I love that kid. Um, but yeah, I mean, these guys know what to expect. They know what Philadelphia's like. They know what we expect. And again, I just think, many hands make light work, and the more eyeballs you get out there trying to find talent, I don't see a problem with it. Not at all. Now, speaking of organizational failures, since we last spoke, it's been made clear that Mike Yo will not be retained by the Flyers. Shocker. Big shocker there. Old cue ball Cuzzy boy will not be back next year, as the bench boss in Philadelphia. Um, and I got to ask, who do you want? I know Barry Trotz is a name that's been thrown out there. He's not being retained by the Islanders, um, which kind of raises a few red flags with me. Lou Lamoriello is, you know, regarded as one of the best GMs in the National Hockey League, and he has been for a long time. And if he's at a position where he wants to move on from Barry Trotz, you got to wonder why, at least a little bit.
Yeah, well, we don't cover the Islanders, so obviously we don't know what's going on over there. We don't know. I don't want to like speculate that players may not be responding to him anymore, or the locker room going sour on him because we just don't know. What I will say is, before I went on Twitter that day, I already knew it was going to be we need to hire Barry Trotz. And listen, any team out there looking for a coach is going to want to hire Barry Trotz. It's really going to be, well, where does Barry Trotz really want to go? I don't know if the Flyers would be a destination that he's interested in. Obviously, they should be doing their due diligence and, at least trying to see if they can bring him in here. But there's guys out there, there's Bruce Boudreau, there's John Tortorella. I know me and Jesse have mentioned, why is his name not coming to me at the moment? I'll have to think about it later. But I
Rick
think
Tocchet's another name out
Rick
there.
Tockett's a name, and again, another former alum. Uh, sometimes it could be, for better or for worse. Sometimes the former alum can get longer leashes within, at least from the fan base. Like I said, for better or for worse. Uh, So, you know, Bruce Boudreau probably wouldn't be a name that people would be too thrilled about if the Flyers ended up hiring him. He's obviously been around for a long time. He's kind of one of those coaches that continuously gets cycled through the league. Um,
Elaine Vigneault.
yeah, Alain Vigneault. Uh, John Tortorella, I wouldn't be mad at. Wouldn't be my first choice, but
See, and
um,
that's where you're wrong, my friend. John Tortorella is exactly what this team needs.
I think his attitude and like no nonsense attitude, I'm not sure how it would vibe with the players that we have here, which could be more to a
Well,
testament,
clearly vibing
which
with the
which
players doesn't fucking work.
right. Again, which doesn't mean that's on him. Like that could say a lot more about the players that you have here than it would say about him as a coach. I know him and Cam Atkinson got along very well, right? I know Cam Atkinson had made some comments about him recently and about the Flyers not having enough "fuck you" to their game, which I think John Tortorella brings that uh, in spades. So you know that that'd be something I'm certainly okay with. Obviously, Barry Trotz is at the
That's
top of a lot of people's list for sure.
no, I get it, and I guess like don't get me wrong, I'd love to have Barry Trotz. I don't think he wants to come here.
Well, you look at the state of the organization and you think, well, yeah, why would he? Especially if he has a
Well, the
lot of
crazy
teams to
thing
pick
is we
from.
have a half decent roster. Um, but the red flag for me with Barry Trotz coming here is that he's known as a systems guy, just like Alain Vigneault was. He's a big time systems guy. Um, and I just don't like we've gone down that hole before. We went there with AV and it didn't work. And at this point, I think we need more of a locker room guy, a culture builder, somebody to get the boys going in the right direction here and pull their heads out of their ass, play with a little bit more fire, play with some fuck you, some grit, some jam, as we like to say. And I think Tortorella brings that for you, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think, yeah, I know we've spoken about this to where realistically we think, hard retool, whatever. The Flyers are probably at least another offseason away, if not two, from especially with how next year's free agency looks and the players that are available. Uh, we're probably 3 years from being competitive if we're going the retooling route. I'd probably take a good 2 to 3 years to do that. And I think Tortorella is also a really good bridge coach before you were to eventually go out and try to find the coach that you think could lead your team to a Stanley Cup.
Right. And like I said, he's a great culture guy. So even if, you go that route and you do use him as a bridge coach, bring him in for 2 years. Obviously it'd be like a 3-year deal or something like that. But bring him in for 3 years, let him build the culture, and get everybody going in the right direction here. And then you bring in the systems guy, right? Then you bring in your Barry Trotz, your AV, your heavy system guy, right? The guy that's going to implement um, some creative styles of hockey and lead you to the promised land. But again, I just can't emphasize this enough. We need locker room culture. And we went the route of trying to bring in the players to establish it. That clearly hasn't worked. So I think at this point, your only option is to look at the coach.
Yeah, well, I also think that Tortorella he's a coach that can get the most out of maybe not the most talent in the world either. If you look at what he did with, with those Columbus Blue Jackets team, they beat Tampa, who were the President's Trophy winners in the first round. They
Swept
were always in the playoffs and they were, a tough team to play against. Not the most talented team, not the best team, but they were an extremely tough team to play against. And the Flyers are not a tough team to play against. They were not a tough team to play against in the least. And if you're trying to be a team that's tough to play against, obviously they are. That's why they got Ristolainen. They think Ristolainen makes them a harder team to play against, being big and physical, uh, and things like that. So it depends on what direction they want to go. It depends on what behind the scenes their realistic outlook is for this team over the next year or two. And I think it'll be interesting and it'll be fun debating, and having that talk once they actually find a candidate.
Yeah, and you'll start to see, who they're interviewing here soon. I can't imagine that they would wait until after the draft to get the coach in here, right? Because I think at the end of the day, the coach does have at least a little bit of pull in who gets drafted. Who's going to fit their system and things like that. So I don't know.
Well,
Interested to see. You'll start hearing some names pop up here soon.
well, I guess speaking of getting a coach in here before the draft, if anyone is living under a rock and does not know, the Flyers did end up falling a spot and getting the fifth. They finished fourth in the bottom. They get the fifth pick. The Devils luck out again and jump up to the number 2 spot.
And you can't
Whoop,
tell me that the lottery is
whoopity
rigged.
fucking do.
You cannot tell me that the lottery is not rigged because once again, here's the league helping out the Devils.
I just don't understand the way they do these things. Like the Flyers, under no circumstances could the Flyers have gotten the third pick, but they could have got the first or the second. And then the Devils couldn't have gotten the fourth pick. They were either getting the fifth, first, second, or third. I'm just like, how are we doing this year? Like what? And like they just changed the rules this year for it too. And I just don't
Conveniently.
understand. And it's not even. And do I think it's a big deal dropping the one spot? Not really. I'd say there's about 5 or 6 players that I do like in this draft. So I mean, obviously, I was on the Uri Slavkowski train, and I highly doubt he's going to be there at 5, which is fine. There are other good players in this draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't started doing too much homework on the prospects yet, but anytime you're in the top five, as long as you pick the right guy, which sounds easy, but then you end up with a Nolan Patrick, right? So I
Yeah,
don't know.
well,
We'll,
if you
we'll
look at
see
that
what
draft
happens.
and you look at the guys who went after Nolan Patrick, who went 3, 4, 5, they all turned out to be pretty good.
Don't even fucking bring up Kale McCarr. Um, but no. So here's the thing: the argument for the draft lottery is that it de-incentivizes tanking. But at the end of the day, tanking in hockey doesn't get you anywhere. It really doesn't. Like having the first overall pick in the NHL does you nothing as far as immediate results. You're not drafting a player that's going to be, an impact guy day one unless there's a Connor McDavid out there.
And
And
here's what I'm sorry to cut you off real quick, but just real quick. If the team that finishes like in this lottery draft era, of sports in general, because it seems like every single league except for the NFL really does this. Um, if the team that finishes last is getting the first overall pick, the overwhelming majority of the time anyway, why aren't we just doing where you finish is where you draft?
that's what it should be. Like I'm sick of seeing these teams continue to get the leg up. I mean, you saw it in the bubble year. The Rangers were in the play-in rounds, and they ended up with the first pick and took home Lafreniere. Like under no circumstance should they have had that pick. You know, and again, I hate to keep bringing it back to Philly because I don't want it to seem like, oh, the league hates the Flyers, but we get fucked this year. We got fucked the JVR Patrick Kane year. And I'm just over it. I'm so over the draft lottery. It is
Well, you
the
could like
dumbest thing that the NHL does.
I mean, at the same time, we were supposed to draft 13th and ended up drafting second. Obviously, that pick didn't particularly work out, as we all know. We don't need to harp on that any longer. But it's a lot of well, what has happened recently? And recently, you know, at least with the second overall pick, the drafting. That's why people don't trust us to make like a pick, like a high draft pick. Like people are, a lot of people are just like, oh my god, well, this player, whoever we draft, isn't going to be that good anyway, even if he is a top 5 pick. Like I don't really see it that way. I think it would be really hard to mess this pick up. I mean, obviously, you never know what these guys are going to become, right? But you can only go off based of what they've done so far in their careers now, and you can only go based off of what your scouts are saying and what your scouts are, you know, saying this guy projects to be, whether it's a top line scorer, second line scorer, first D man, second D man, whatever. So I mean, that's just how the draft is done. And I know that again, you never know how these guys are going to end up, but there's some decent players in this draft, and you know, barring a reach here, from a guy who's not really on anyone's radar at that pick, uh, I think we're going to get a good player. I'm very confident in it.
I am cautiously optimistic. And you bring up trust there. And I'll tell you what, when I want to slam some beers, there's only two companies I trust: Sterling Pig Brewing Company, right out of Delaware County, Media, Pennsylvania, sterlingpig.com. Make sure you check out all their awesome beers. Check out their session IPAs that they do every month. Um, I just recently had the May as fuck, and it was awesome. Their monthly beers, like they always, I look forward to them every month. They send me a little care package with some beers every month, and I always look forward to the beer of the month. Phenomenal beers. Check them out. Head out to the brewery if you're looking for a nice night out. Grab a good bite to eat and a couple of interesting brews. Check them out. Sterling Pig Brewery, right in the heart of Delco in Media, and also the only other brewery that I trust with my inebriation is Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company, brewed right in the heart of Croydon, Pennsylvania, my hometown. Check them out. They are available anywhere fine beverages are sold. And as always, the official beer of Jawn Street, made by Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company, is Jawn. Always delicious. Again, the official beer of Jawn Street, Neshaminy Creek Brewery. Check them out on Facebook, Twitter. I think they're on Instagram as well. Check them out. Check out their tap room again. Um, Available anywhere fine beverages are sold.
Well said.
You like that little Scrabble word I threw in there, inebriation?
I expect nothing less from you at this point.
That's right. That's hosting 101, baby. Throw out some words. Like you're not a true podcast host until your listeners have to pause the show to Google a word that you just said.
Well, I don't know if anyone needs to Google inebriated. I think a lot. I think for the most
You'd
part,
be
people know what
surprised.
that means.
You'd be surprised, buddy. You don't know
Yes.
how many of my family members listen to this show.
What are you saying about your family, Shawn? That's fucked up.
Oh man, I'm just saying there's not many English majors in my family, so um,
Sixers down by 14 here. 13, I'm sorry. So almost to the end of the third quarter. Damn, man. This will be really disappointing.
take
I
it
just
easy.
wanted to
All
I
right,
just wanted to
it's not over yet.
I just wanted to have fun watching playoff something a little longer.
Yes, yes. God knows the Phillies ain't getting us there, but this is a hockey show, so now time to talk about another disappointing Philadelphia sports teams. Your team, your town, your
From one to
Philadelphia
the other.
Flyers. Uh, So yeah, I mean, fifth overall, like you said, there's going to be some players there. As always, there's going to be a couple of dark horse candidates that start to come out here towards the end as we get closer to the draft. So we'll
Yeah.
have to see. But at fifth, there's no reason why there can't be a quality player there that's
Now,
going to play meaningful minutes for this club.
the one thing about drafting fifth is you're you're gonna have probably a tougher decision on, well, are you gonna take the best defenseman there, or are you gonna take the next best, at least in your eyes, scoring winger, center, whatever? Because one of two defensemen is more than likely going to be there, and that's Simon Nemec and Juracek. And then when it comes to scoring wingers, you're probably looking at Matt Savoy, who could play both wing or forward. Um, I get the impression that a lot of the fan base is sick of drafting defensemen, and they want to, go out and draft
We need goal
uh,
scoring.
a fun, scoring player who projects to be a top line
Yes,
winger. And like I
that's
said,
what we
Matt
need.
Savoy could play both. And Joakim Kamel, who is the other Finnish player outside of Slavkowski, who uh, could very well. I'm sorry, Slavkowski is Slovakian, not Finnish, but Kamel is another player who is Finnish who could go anywhere from like 5 to 8, maybe 10. Um, I could see him going 5 again. They just got Sami Kapanen, who's also from Finland. They just drafted the guy from Finland last year in the second round. That's a guy that I could see them going. I certainly wouldn't mind Matt Savoy either. Again, it'll be fun to watch the debates on. No, we need to draft the number one defenseman. No, we need to draft the top line, or at least top line winger, or at least what they're projected to be. So that'll be fun.
I won't be having any fun until this team makes its way back into the playoffs.
Yeah, well,
And I hate to be that guy. I hate to be Negadelphia.
listen,
But
Shawn.
it's
No
just
one.
so hard not to be with the way that this team has been the last decade.
They just called a walk. No. Listen, I think it'll be extremely disappointing if we're kind of like. I mean, I don't know how you feel being like a bubble team in the playoffs. Like, oh, like if we just missed the playoffs last year, is that any better than finishing at the bottom of the standings and getting another high draft pick? Like, do we want to squeeze in the playoffs, but the whole time knowing we really don't have a shot to win the cup because we're not that good?
No, I don't want to do that because I already read that book. We had a decade of it.
That's what I'm saying. But at the same time, they're going. They tell us they're going to do this hard retool, which would suggest that they're going to bring some major pieces in here, and maybe send some major pieces out, or at least pieces that we at one point presumed to be major pieces to this team. Uh, So, listen, a lot of things need to go right for Chuck Fletcher if they're going to pull this off the way that they say that they're going to try to. And I just think that the chips are stacked up against them. Uh, barring bringing in a Johnny Hockey or maybe a Philip Forsberg in the offseason. Again, those players
You
have to want to come here. Like
Yes.
like Johnny Hockey would have to want to come here.
No, I agree.
And I just don't know
You
how
got to
much
see
of a
how it shakes out, and at this point, I think it's a make or break kind of an off season for Chuck Fletcher. If they're not significantly better next year, I don't think he comes back. I really don't. Now you mentioned moving out some key pieces possibly, and our boys over on Flyers Alley, shout out Gummy, shout out Admiral. They were hearing recently that TK may be on the block.
It wouldn't surprise me hearing anybody's name up on the block because I don't think there's an untouchable on this team. I
No,
think
there's
you
not, and
I
we've
think
we've
you
talked about it
as
before.
a
I mean,
fan, you have to be okay with any player potentially being moved to improve this team in the offseason.
correct. I mean, TK is a guy that we've mentioned time and time again is a guy that definitely needs a change of scenery. He needs to try and rediscover, what made him a solid NHL hockey player that he's lost here in the last few seasons. Um, I think he's a guy that you kind of see moved out in a hockey trade, right? Maybe for another guy that's struggling in his current spot, and maybe another change of scenery guy like that, or maybe you see him moved out for some draft assets.
I think he's a guy towards the end of the season was looking more like a playmaker than a goal scorer, and that's just not. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like if Travis Konecny ended up being like a pretty good, playmaker, that's not like a terrible thing. It doesn't. It's just our expectations of him was to be a goal scorer,
Right.
and if he's not going to, it's been quite a long stretch now that he hasn't been producing goals at a good clip. Actually, at a terrible clip. So at some point, you have to decide whether or not you think he's the player we've seen over the last 2 years, or if he's the player that you've seen the previous 2 years. And can you know additions to player development and the coaching staff and all things like that, you know, change the tide for him? Maybe, I don't know. I certainly. Are you there? Wait, I've heard that sound before. What is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds like a bubbling of water.
CBD water pipe.
Yeah. No, but Travis Konechny, listen, there's no player on this team that I'm married to and that I would, be crushed to see go. Uh, even Carter Hart, who's probably, you know, I love Carter Hart. I think he certainly has the skill set and the tools to be really good, but talk about a player that could be getting pushed this year, and have more competition to get games. Uh, Carter Hart, because the Flyers have signed Russian goalie prospect Ivan Fedatov to a 1-year ELC. This just went down last week, I believe. Um, he's 25 years old. He was drafted in 2015. Actually, the Flyers' last pick of that round. Uh, he during the regular season in the KHL, he appeared in 26 games, went 14, 10, and 2 with a 2 goals against average, 919 save percentage. And then in this past Olympics, he went 4 and 2 with a 161 goals against and a 942 save percentage. And then this year he actually led his KHL team to the championship, where in the playoffs he went 16 and 6 with a 185 uh, goals per game and a 937 save percentage. So, and he's like 6'7". So I think bringing a guy like that over and potentially giving Carter Hart like, a real battle when it comes to getting minutes at the goalie spot. I think the competition is good for him, and I wouldn't see a problem. I think this guy potentially pushing Carter Hart. Obviously it's way too early to tell, and we need to see him play over here in North America. But I think potentially having a guy that could really push Carter Hart to like, oh shit, like this guy could take my job because nothing is promised. And I think you muted yourself.
Help him discover another gear.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just give him maybe a little bit more of a push that he might need. I think it would be great.
No, absolutely. And you can never have too many goalies. I mean, you see it right now in the playoffs with Pittsburgh. They're Tristan Jarry went down and next man up, and their backup hasn't been playing too bad. And you always want to have a quality backup. You want to have a guy that if your number one does get hurt, you can say, hey, here's the keys for 35 games. Go win me 18 to 20 of them.
Yeah, so I think obviously he's been being talked about a lot, especially since the past Olympics. Um, so it'll be fun to actually see him get over here. They never actually knew if he was going to get over here, so you know, and to not have to go out and search and wonder who they're going to sign in the offseason, uh, I see no problem with it. I
That's
know.
not to say that they won't still attempt to bring in a veteran backup. I think that's still a very real possibility. And you saw last year, Samstrom is a guy that they still are kind of high on.
Yeah, I thought, in limited games looked, like he could certainly hold his own at points. Still pretty young. I think could still use maybe a little more time in the AHL. I think Fedotov has been playing with grown ass men for a while now in the KHL, which is which is a big part of it. And that's a big part of why Uri Slavkowski's draft capital fucking shot up. He went to play in the Olympics as an 18-year-old and scored 7 goals in 7 games against grown men, uh, being a big kid himself. So, playing in these leagues, like the KHL and the Swedish league, playing with grown men, I think as a kid, um, just does a lot for player development and character development as a whole.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, you can never have too many quality goalie prospects. Um, and we saw it with the Phantoms in the AHL this year too. I mean, they struggled mightily. So even if this guy's not NHL ready year one, I don't see why he can't play some meaningful games down in the A as well to try and bring himself along here.
Yeah, and the 1-year entry level contract is kind of, you know, a, a lot of times you'll see those entry level contracts for, players that you've drafted be maybe 2 or 3 years. So the fact that it's only 1 year is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it tells me that they were kind of far apart on money. I think in this case, the players is trying to get paid for what he hasn't done yet. Trying to get paid for potential, and the team isn't willing to go there. They want to pay you for what you've been to this point. So I think they went for the 1 year deal. Prove it, see what you got. Show me that you deserve that money that you're asking for.
Yeah, and you know what? His numbers over in the KHL and even in the Olympics were really good. Now, obviously, you have to add the caveat that it's a different game over there. The ice is bigger. So now how much of his game can translate over here? Can he play this well against the greatest players in the world and the greatest league in the world? We're gonna find out. And for some reason, I just have a thing for huge goaltenders. Like when I see a goalie is like 6'7", I'm like, yes, this is it. Get this guy. He should be good. Motherfucker covers the whole net.
Oh, remember Ilya Brizgalov was pretty big too. Oh,
I don't know
isn't
if he
that a
was.
painful memory?
I don't know if
That's
he
right,
was
guys.
6'7".
Being a Flyers fan can be painful. So can achy joints, knees, backs, elbows. And that's why there's only one CBD company that we here at Old City Sports Network trust, and that is our friends at Body Check Wellness. That's Body Check, Body CHEK Wellness. Make sure you use our promo code OCS as in Old City Sports for 25% off all your 100% hemp derived CBD needs. Check that pain through the boards with Body Check Wellness. Let them know Old City Sports sent you. Promo code OCS, 25% off your entire order.
Did you want to rip another one here?
Surely.
I don't care. Let's do Norse. Rip a little Norse beards action.
God knows you shouldn't be doing an ad for Norse Beards with that embarrassment of facial hair that you have on your face.
This is nothing yet.
Guys,
This is
if you want
absolutely
to look
nothing.
like the mayor, you want to look like the Norse gods, you want to improve your beard game, there's only one company to trust, and that is NorseBeards.com. Use the promo code OCS. Once again, guys, get 25% off your entire order from our friends at Norse Beards. Get yourself looking like a Norse god. Get yourself looking like the mayor of Jawn Street. And more importantly, get those ladies interested because they love a man
You
with a
know,
beard.
for people just listening to the podcast, they probably think I got some like Sidney Crosby stubble can't grow beard going on. This isn't bad, okay? This is just the beginning. This is the it's like I'm a butterfly in its cocoon before it hatches. That's what this beard is before it really takes off.
So I don't consider it a beard until I can no longer tell what your chin is shaped like.
That I don't agree with that statement. Did someone comment?
Yes.
Flyers you. I like it, whatever that means. Thanks. Thanks, Mitch.
um, but yeah, I mean, I just want a smart hockey team. That's all I want. That's all I've ever wanted. Just give me a smart hockey team.
Yeah, well, they're not going anywhere, and we also aren't going anywhere. We'll be here
No,
to
we're not.
cover all the bad decisions, all the injuries, all the things that can go wrong. That's about all I got. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to this. I got nothing else for tonight.
I just want to thank our awesome listeners for sticking with us through this season. Obviously, we'll be here a few times this off season, do a couple of pop up shows. Um, to kind of discuss any kind of news that comes out in the coming weeks here pre-draft. But seriously, guys, we literally could not do the show without you. We appreciate everybody for rocking with us this season. It was a big year for the show.
Absolutely.
Big year for the show. We secured some new sponsors. We began doing live events once a month at Pike's Pub. Shout out Pike's Pub, Second Street Pikes, Southampton, Pennsylvania, home of the coldest beers in Southampton, Pennsylvania. Pike's Pub, Second Street Pike, Pike Plaza. But yeah, we started doing live events with those guys over at Pike's. Shout out Pike's. Um, and we've also since joined up with Old City Sports. And I, for one, want to thank everybody here for having us. Yeah, it's brought some great opportunities since we've come over. I mean, we're both on other shows now. You got the Dusty Buttes going on, league wide NHL coverage. Make sure you check that out, guys.
Hold on, Sean. Sean, hold on. I'm sorry to stop you in the middle of this. Just tell me if you can answer this question. Mitch says, "Okay, thumbs up, games." Lisa and Jim, is this guy fucking with us? Is he trolling us, or does this mean something?
I think it means something. I
Mitch, are you
don't know
trolling
what it
us?
means.
Mitch, we don't know what that means.
We
And
appreciate
if
the hell
you're
out of you for
and if
listening.
you're and if you're trolling us, I also respect that as well.
Yes.
But
Um,
I'm
but yeah,
lost, buddy.
you got the Dusty Buttes going on. I got Sundays for the Birds going on for all your Eagles news. Check out Sundays for the Birds at Sunday Birds Pod on Twitter. Um, we got a lot of great things going on here at Old City Sports, and I just want to thank them for having us and making us a part of it. Um, Glad to be here. I think we're going to be here to stay. They've provided some great things for us here, both personally and as a show. So make sure you pay the website a visit. Old City, that's old with an E, citysports.com. Check us out for all kinds of sports content, covering multiple teams across the NHL, league wide NFL coverage, and of course Philadelphia Flyers and Eagles coverage, all available for you on oldcitysports.com. Guys, thank you so much for rocking with us for another season. We appreciate the hell out of you. Don't forget to show love to our awesome sponsors. We're out.
Oh wait, hold on. Before we leave, got one more comment for Mitch. Okay, dude. Know you games play hockey, Vegas, Seattle, Kraken. Okay,
Right on,
Mitch.
Mitch.
Thanks, man. We appreciate your comments. Keep them coming. Uh, bye,
Guys,
everyone.
we appreciate everybody rocking with us. Thank you.